All right, good evening, everybody. We'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, changes to the agenda. We have moved items off the consent agenda B3 through B124. All 123 of them have been moved to new business for discussion and public comment. No presentations. Public comments for non-agenda items. Persons wishing to address the town council on a matter not listed on the agenda may speak at this time. Speakers must provide their name and address, observe the 3-minute time limit, and speak only after being recognized by the mayor. Let's see, these are all noise. Anybody? Jim.
I'm Jim Seaton, 601 North Miramar Avenue. Recently, a person from Surfrider Condo sent you a grievance petition, and this is something different than the special event petition. It was signed by almost 50 people, including majority of the owners or residents at Indialantic 1 condo where I live. What the grievance petition asks is for the town to properly interpret and rigorously enforce the ordinance in our part of town. We're not trying to shut down a business, but we do want it to meet the code, and in doing so, it will decrease the nuisances it creates. As property owners, we need and deserve more than some simple response like, the code enforcement officers looked into your complaint and it's unfounded. We deserve an explanation as to the interpretation of the ordinances, especially when the wording in the ordinances is so different than what's happening in my neighborhood. We deserve an explanation on every one of those items in that large grievance petition, but let me press on with just one of them since one of my neighbors recently filed a formal complaint. The tourist zone ordinance clearly addresses what's allowed and what's not allowed in our neighborhood. Section 1C states, hotels and motels of not less than 10 rental units are permitted to have related service activities such as restaurants or shops, provided such uses are situated on and are part of the hotel or motel building. The restaurant at Blue Beach is clearly not part of the motel building, situated under several gazebos on the pool deck of the property. Most other Florida municipalities operate by formally responding to any ordinance complaint in writing. I brought up this very ordinance at my very first meeting with Mike Casey in December of 2023, some 26 months ago. And I've never received any explanation, oral or written, as to how the town interprets it and why this part of the code isn't being enforced. It shouldn't matter to the town officials or you, the council, whether a written response is required by statute or not. What we're looking for is for you to do the right thing and let us understand what the interpretation is and why it's not being enforced. As a town council, if you want to end all the ongoing issues, controversy, and finger pointing, simply instruct Mr. Stokes, Mr. Casey, and Mr. Raminda to reply in writing to that large grievance petition on a point-by-point basis for each of the alleged violations. Doing this will go a long way to getting us all on the same page. Don't let them reply saying it's already been looked at and it's in compliance. Explain to us what the words mean to the town and the code officials and why the property is or is not in violation. Is that asking too much for 72 property owners that are negatively affected by this property? It's what we deserve as tax-paying citizens and voters and what you would want if it was your home. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I will be getting with Mike to discuss some of that. I don't know if you all have, but that'll be on your own time. So anyway, any other public comments? All right. Moving on is public announcements. There are openings on the following boards and committees: local zoning and planning, budget and finance, and civil service. OREO, which is the Orlando Reef Education Organization, is looking for volunteers to assist with CO planning on Saturday, February 14th. That is this Saturday. If you're interested in participating, show up at Nance Park, 9:30 a.m. And Indialantic Town Hall will be closed on Monday, February 16th, in observance of President's Day. Consent agenda. Is there a motion? Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Just to be clear, we have on the consent agenda items 1 and 2.
And then, yeah, there's a couple at the very bottom too.
So just to be clear, since we had the change at the last minute. So I'll move to approve the consent agenda, which consists of items 1, 2,
And 126.
126 on the original agenda for tonight's.
It's 125.
125?
Yeah, that's why. I have it up to 125. I don't have 126.
I don't either.
Is it approve the roof replacement?
Right here.
Yeah, the roof replacement for Sunrise Park Pavilion is the last one.
So 1, 2, and 125.
And 126.
The hard copy is 125.
Oh, yeah, the hard copy is
the-
amended, and
Okay.
it's 125.
Then it'll be per the hard copy, 1, 2, and 125.
Okay, so just for clarity, the items are, well, one of them is approve the roof replacement for Sunrise Park at Pavilion. Holy sh-
Council meeting minutes and agreement with Fisher and Fisher for Fifth Avenue median.
Okay, so the motion was to approve consent agenda 1, 2, and 125 on the hard copy. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda items 1, 2, and 125, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, unanimous. All right, ordinances and public hearing. Ordinance 2026-02, second final reading, public hearing relating to ribbon curb requirements for paved driveways. An ordinance of the Town of Indialantic, Brevard County, Florida, adding sections 113 to 233-1 to the Indialantic zoning code relating to the ribbon curb requirements for paved driveways, providing for implementation, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2026-02, second and final reading, relating to ribbon curb requirements for paved driveways.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion from council?
No discussion.
No.
You guys are good? Public comment? All right, all those in favor of approving the ordinance 2026-02, second reading, final hearing relating to ribbon curb requirements for paved runways, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Item number 2, ordinance 2026-06, second final reading, public hearing relating to the establishment of a special magistrate for code enforcement purposes. An ordinance of the Town of Indialantic, Brevard County, Florida, amend sections 2-5 to the Indialantic Code of Ordinances relating to the establishment of a special magistrate for code enforcement purposes pursuant to Chapter 162 Florida statutes, and amending those portions of the Code of Ordinances referencing a code enforcement board, providing for implementation, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date. So for people who are just tuning in, we'll be eliminating the code enforcement board, which is made up of residents, and we'll go to a special magistrate, which is an independent attorney who specializes in that, and they will make the judgment instead of the set of the board. So that's the short of it. Is there a motion on ordinance 2026-06?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2026-06, second and final reading, relating to the establishment of a special magistrate for code enforcement purposes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
No additional comments for me.
We should have done it a long time ago. It's a good
Yep.
idea.
Public comment. All right, all those in favor of approving ordinance 2026-06 as it relates to special magistrate for code enforcement purposes, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Unanimous again. Ordinance 2026-07, first reading, public hearing relating to the establishment of procedures for review and approval of certified recovery residences. An ordinance of the town of Indialantic, Florida, creating sections 113 to 188-1 to the Indialantic zoning code relating to the establishment of procedures for the review and approval of certified recovery residences, providing for implementation, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date. Is there a motion from council?
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2026-07 regarding the certified recovery residences.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, comment from council.
This is a mandatory revision to the zoning and planning, or sorry, for the ordinances, and consistent with the state. So it's required, and it's taking effect across the state.
Yep, thanks for pointing that out. You guys, any comment?
Just point of reference, certified recovery residences are basically built businesses or service organizations that house and help folks recovering from substance abuse, as I understand it.
Mike or Matt, any comment?
No, that's it. We're required by law to pass it, by statute. The state governor signed it after the state legislature passed it.
Yeah, every city in the state is doing these.
Yeah.
Okay. So, public comment. All right. All those in favor of approving ordinance 2026-07 as it relates to certified recovery residences, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, unanimous. We have no unfinished business. New business, review and approve the revised personnel/civil service manual. Mike?
Yeah, every couple of years, it's been about 2 years since we did it, I think April 2024. As we find things that seem to need to be addressed and stuff, and changes in the personnel, I'm trying to get to that page, sorry. We address and put that changes in. So this has been a process, and yeah, thank you. There's nothing drastically changing, just a few verbiages and stuff. If you see, anything that's underlined, like an eligibility, the free holiday pay, we cleared that up, that they have to work their last scheduled day because people are sick, small little changes like that. Employees rehired within 12 months, we can reinstate their accrual rate. Right now it's 4 months. So we're trying to update some of the things like that. I clarify, like fire personnel were different than the rest of the personnel and what they accumulate in leave, you know. Yeah, just clerical, small little thing clerical. Nothing changed, nothing budgetary is gonna be affected or anything like that. We're not adding any benefits or anything in this.
Yeah. So we're just updating the employee,
Just
the
updating
staff
the employees.
manual.
As we find things rewarding or something, you know, like we remove one section, the word town clerk because it wasn't appropriate and things.
Okay. Is there, well, I guess we need a motion, right? Is there a motion for ordinance 2026-07?
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to review and approve the revised personnel civil service manual.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any comments from council?
Changes were minor and editorial, consistent with the current operating procedures, and don't have an impact on the budget. So I think
It's just updating, right?
doesn't affect the day-to-day, so,
Yeah.
and
John, you got anything?
No.
Public comment? Well, that's easy. All right. What, you need us to vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving the revised personnel/civil service manual, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that's unanimous. All right,
jump in.
topic of the night, noise ordinance. Julie, you put this on, obviously the 123 special event applications also are on it, but you want to start it off
Sure.
as it relates to the noise ordinance?
Okay, so the sorry. The reason that I wanted to place this on the agenda this evening was to see, I have my own opinions. I've talked with a local business owner who's having an issue with this sort of thing, and believing that it aligns with something positive that's trying to happen in our town. And I want to mention right off the bat that I don't know if we can pursue this in different zones, but I want to make sure. I guess it's interesting that we had the 123 come up as well. So in my mind, they're two separate issues.
I would agree with that.
So I want to approach it from my thing, and I know after talking with the chief and the town manager, talk with Brett Miller, I know you guys had a meeting. But basically, if we have a business that has a nice courtyard area that's not aligning any other residential properties, and they want to provide light, ambient, volume, entertainment outside, I think within reason, as long as it's not going to negatively affect any other properties, and this specific property, I'm referring to Casa Bonita, they are located in C1. And I've looked at other properties in that area, and I don't see any that immediately abut a residential home. So I just wanted to ask my fellow council members what they thought, if it was worth trying to find a path forward. And also maybe discuss some of the things you guys knocked around when you talked about the noise ordinance and finding, and I kind of looked up briefly some other towns in Florida or other places, and it seems like there is a reasonable way. I know that measuring tools have been negatively looked at, but there does seem like there is a path forward for ambient, low volume. I have no interest in loud music. If we can't make it work and that's going to be the result, then obviously I wouldn't want to pursue it. However, if we can find a path, and also in mentioning that, like I know right now with these 123 special permits, obviously, I guess discussing that, it seems like they're trying to find a way around. I think if we could find a reasonable way to have routine within the certain hours, low volume, where no one's negatively affected, it's not bouncing onto residential areas. If there's a way, then that's what I would like Rhett to explore.
One of the things that Matt and Mike and Brett Miller, and for everybody who is here who doesn't know who Brett Miller is, he was a former council member who worked on the new noise ordinance and planned to work on the amplified noise ordinance with Paul Gugelman before he passed away. So that part didn't get done. So Matt, Mike, and Brett and I had a conversation, and we talked about, doing maybe a tiered system. So, and I don't know if we figured out, or if you've looked at it, how you do that, but, one person with an acoustic guitar and a low power amp is going to be different than a full-on DJ or a band or something like that. And it would be, what we had talked about was, something like that would be approved by the town manager and police chief, wouldn't have to come to council. Bigger events would have to come to council still, such as, a band or a DJ or something like that. So that is one thing that we talked about. I don't know what everybody else feels about it.
Can I just mention one thing, too, that I thought was important in reading Google's search results, was being able to have a conversation if you're at the venue without screaming. I mean, to me, that's important. If you're be able to have a considerate conversation, then it probably isn't going to be flowing over, So just thought I'd point that out.
Mm-hmm. Carrie, do you have anything?
I am absolutely okay with exploring this. I have one minor concern that I think maybe won't be a concern, but I think it bears mentioning. There's a church right across the street. Full disclosure, it's my church. And there's some church members in the audience here as well. That's my only concern. Church services start at 9. They go until just before noon. And then there's an evening church that's actually in that fellowship hall that's directly across the street. That would be my only concern, that it wouldn't negatively impact any church services. And if that's not the case, then I'm certainly open to moving forward to discussing it.
John?
I'm good with everything Julie just said.
Douglas?
Open to discussion, always open to discussion on any topic. I guess my concern would be is that if we make sure that we keep a broad view of how it might be applied on down the road, while we can certainly put guards or guardrails on any ordinances that have conditions. There are residential units that abut commercial zone, and there are in the RP, either north or south, whether it's C1 or C. So just to be cognizant of that and the ramifications, certainly a nice ambient music during, you know, a pleasant outdoor setting is pleasant for everyone. Everyone can choose their own version of a Jimmy Buffett song or an instrumental. So I'm open to the idea, but I think we have to be very careful about how it is written such that it can make sure that we don't create another unintended consequences. Thank you, Council.
100%.
Certainly open to the idea. Don't disagree that it certainly raises the level of a business and, you know, facilitates their well-being. But my primary concern is that we don't impact quality of life more broadly. So, and how we would do that in this commercial zone and/or tourist zone, or if we exclude the tourist zone altogether. So,
I had one resident bring up an interesting proposal, and I spoke with Matt about it the other day, and I just certainly didn't know the legal, and Matt didn't at the time, but could it be written so that a complaint is a third trigger? So you come up with, say, 3 triggers, like the sound is audibly or plainly audible, and it exceeds 50 decibel, whatever number, and I'm just making these parameters up. And somebody has to complain. So if you only have the first 2, nobody complains, is it a violation? Right? And could it be written that way? And I thought I was thinking out of the box. I like the idea, but if, you know, Matt would have to think about
I
that.
have a problem with that then, because if I have a kid's birthday party at my house, and I got a neighbor who's whining, right, and calls, that's an unintended consequence. That's what I'm kind of talking about, that we take those things into consideration, that unfortunately, you know, you're going to have things, when whatever zone you're in, that are going to cause noise, right? So I'd hate to see some 4-year-old birthday party get shut down because the neighbor next door is a crotchety old man. I mean, that's...
Right. But that would also be residential, and this would not apply to the residential. The amplified noise is probably only be in C1 and C, I think is the intention, but it's a valid point, though.
Well, I'm sure there's other unintended consequences that, you know, would come up, so I
Yeah.
just want to be cautious of that as we move forward.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Just 2 things. One is, when we're talking about like the C1 zone especially, or all the C zones here on Fifth Avenue, we do have the RP zone, so it is technically residential across the street from there. And there are residentials in the 400 block, the 300 block, the 200 block, and the 100 block. We do have people that do that, they solely live there in their residences. So that's something to take in mind too when you're talking about residents, how you're gonna differentiate between like an R1 or an R zone to an RP zone. And also, the other issue is in our entire commercial zone and the C1 zone, no outdoor activity is allowed for that business. I know, but you really can't talk one without the other.
Right.
So, yeah.
Matt, do you have anything?
Yeah, and as the mayor said, we had a discussion about this about a month ago, and we kicked around a lot of different ideas. And, you know, every municipality has a noise ordinance. It's not going to be a situation where noise is prohibited 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's not going to be a situation where unfettered noise can occur 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There has to be, obviously, a middle ground. There's no question that a town can provide an ordinance that restricts time, place, and manner. That's very clear. And, we talked about the tiered system that we discussed. Maybe if it is just a guy with a guitar, that could be a simpler process. We talked about doing an objective standard with decibels versus a subjective standard as to plainly audible or what it might be. And as we've discussed here, doing different things for different zones. There's a lot of different things we can do. And I know Mark and I had discussed the idea that, we want to hear from everybody, all the residents, to see what works for everybody, what works for this town. So there's a lot of different options we have. And I think it's great that we're having this discussion, because I think one thing we can all agree on is we are looking to rewrite the noise ordinance and improve it.
The amplified noise ordinance.
Yes, yeah, and get as has been said, potentially eliminate unintended consequences. And I think the way to do that is to have this open discussion and to have all the residents comment and see what works for the town.
And for clarification, amplified sound ordinance versus the noise ordinance, two different.
Yes.
Like John was saying, but
Two separate.
we're saying, I think we're using it interchangeably, but amplified sound versus noise.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question about that. Is there a reason it's not one ordinance that covers both?
Well, we were looking at the possibility of rewriting all of it. And that's part of the discussion we can have, tonight or even in the future about that. I think it makes sense, if we're going to do part of it, to look at everything as a whole and make it one cohesive ordinance rather than sort of having it broken up and having unintended consequences potentially.
Doug, anything to add?
I agree with the comprehensive approach. We don't need to piecemeal it.
Yeah.
I think it's relevant and timely over the last couple of years. I think it's not something we need to rush into either, though, as well. So, and it shouldn't be viewed as being that we are taking on a position of any particular parties of particular interest at this exact moment. This is a longer-term view. That's perspective of the entire town. That's also respective of certain issues, current issues that we're trying to mitigate through appropriately and respectfully of the residents and businesses.
Nothing to add, John? Carrie? Julie?
I also was, by putting it on the agenda, I am interested for anybody that showed up to find their,
Yeah.
Again, these are our ideas. I'm interested in listening to others as well. But being that we have so many businesses, that's a common complaint in our town, that there's empty buildings, or there's too many banks or realtors. And so, in my opinion, the Casa Bonita, for example, is a nice business. It's a gentle business. It's not like extravagant and loud and crazy. And I would like to think that we can help something like that flourish. So that was my intent.
Before we get to public comment, what do you guys need from us? Just some direction?
Yeah. Yeah, so what we talked about the potential for a tiered system, redoing the entire, both noise ordinance and the amplified sound comprehensively, whether we want to look at a subjective or an objective measurement of it, if we want to have different options for different zones, which I think is probably appropriate. So there's a lot of different factors, and yeah, whatever the direction of the council is.
And one last thing, while we're considering all these things, is you've got a young patrol officer that's going out there at 9:30 at night. So he's got to have clear direction in the ordinance to enforce it. So, I mean, we could say all these things, but where the rubber meets the road is that patrol officer going out there at night and having to make a decision. Right. So we've got to make this ordinance clear so that that enforcement action can be taken. So it's not all muddled up with...
Agreed. And clear, too, so all the residents know exactly what, and the businesses know exactly what they can do and can't do.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to say is like the patrol officers, but clarify for staff, this is a frustration on my behalf, I know, on all of our staffs, because if we allow like I've used an example before, the flags that we allow for temporary, but then somebody's putting temporary and we don't get after them. The business next door is like, why do they get to have them? We don't get to have them. So we need to make sure we're fair and it's staff friendly, that we can understand things, not very, well, we need to have a little bit more, guidance and stuff, and it's clear and understandable, not some of this confusing language that's been around since, 1952 when they did some of the things. That's the very important part, so everybody understands it.
Yep. So I guess tiered system, you guys like that idea?
I'd be interested to see what it looks like before I generally agree with anything wholeheartedly. Like I said, I'm open to any idea at this point, and I'd like certainly to get the perspective, give a pretty strong weighted perspective from the enforcement side. I know we had a lot of discussion about decibel meters and what how they're good and they're bad, because there's a lot of evidence that has to go along with it if you want like a radar gun with, in order to be able to use it in a court of law or a code enforcement, and so
Calibration and training and
there's
all.
all kinds of stuff that goes along with it and makes it actually more cumbersome in some regards than actually having an ordinance that is more directive and understandable for an individual to administer, but is also reasonable and as a tool that can be deployed. So.
I just was curious if there would be a process for the business owner to be educated on what's acceptable. So maybe there's some is that something you could do? Meaning there's they understand what the unacceptable level is. And if that is acceptable, then if they abuse it, then I don't know, is there a license or something where you could revoke it permanently if they're not going to respect the parameters?
I think a great thing to do would be at the first reading, once we have an agreement on what we want in it, to encourage, as a lot of people have come here tonight, to discuss it and see what the problems are, what the residents don't necessarily understand, or what could be made clearer, which is kind of the process of the first reading, second reading. Those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I know one of the ideas we kicked around, and we're getting a little in the weeds, I guess, but I guess amps, I'm not a musician, right? But amps have different ratings, and what those numbers are, I have no idea. But, say a 10 watt amp, right, is low amperage, I assume, or low power, right? So that would be different, than something bigger. So if the musician or the business owner says, hey, well, what size is your amp? You say, oh, well, it's 10, and they, okay, that's good, So I think if it's delineated in the code explicitly, or pretty clear anyway, I think that would be fairly easy for the business owner and, part of their responsibility too, as the business owner, I think.
I think it could be instructive to include either, not maybe in the code, but certainly as an addendum or as a separate standalone document, some examples of, very explicitly, that kind of that articulate our vision, the town's vision with regards to what that means. That would educate all parties involved, potentially, and it would also help us work through some of the potentially some of the pitfalls.
Any other?
You have a comment?
I do. Two things. Yeah, if people call here, the questions, we answer them, what they can do and stuff. They don't like our answer, they just go ahead and do it anyway. That's part of the problem, to be honest with you. But we also talked about, while we're addressing that, I know we're not talking about special events or anything, but if you're talking about myself and the police chief being amplified during certain special events, I think we address our special events too. We talked about it last year and brought it to council. And last year, the year before, Molly, 24, 25, I forget, but 20, it was 24, about having a system where, there's a more formal thing with special events where what would go through council, what wouldn't go through council, but also be charging a fee. Just the example, Satellite Beach, they have different tiers. If it's under 100, over 100, and it's on town property or the city property, if it's on private property and things. Yeah. And addressing that whole situation would help us too, because even though there's different, putting them together they're hand in hand.
Yeah, I know the form we have, right? It's a special event form or request or whatever. But you also use the same form for amplified noise, even if it's not a special event. So you need to do something about that. Chief, you got anything to add?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just two things in listening to it. Number one, I would caution against doing this is a 10 amp or a 5 watt amplifier, because we still have to consider the rules of evidence. And so if we are going to, let's say we go to a commercial, it's still private property, there's still Fourth Amendment issues, and we tell them we want to inspect your amp to make sure that you're within a certain parameter, and they tell us to pound sand, but we look at it anyway. Now anything after that's fruit of the poisonous tree. That case is gone, and we violated Fourth and 14th Amendment due process laws and things like that. So I would caution against being that specific on that. And ironically, yesterday I had a meeting with, well, not really ironically, but just it's timely. I had a meeting with some other beachside chiefs, and one of the chiefs, when I brought the discussion up, we started talking about it, and one of the chiefs actually said that the state attorney's office, misdemeanor intake attorney, does not suggest that we use decibel meters. Now, I have not had time to verify that on my own, and I will, but it did come up in the topic and the discussion that we had amongst the group yesterday at lunch, and it was for the very reason I've been bringing up, is that as Councilman Brady said, you know, there's certain things that we have to go by, and once we get in there and we get a 22, 23-year-old officer that's up there and said, well, I cited somebody, or I filed it with the state attorney's office, now they bring a subject matter expert in who knows everything about sound waves and bars and pressures and bass and stuff like that. There's stuff that is way even over my head. I know how to turn it on and off, and we're gonna get crucified. It's gonna look silly. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, public comment as it relates to noise, not necessarily the 123 events. So, Jim, you had your raise up.
Both noise and the C1 district we're talking about at the same time?
Uh,
Or are we going to address?
we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, I thought Julie was bringing this up for specific.
Why is he not coming to the podium?
Just asking a clarifying question. Yeah, so I guess to clarify, we haven't specified that yet. So we don't know which zones it would apply to at this point.
Yeah, that'd be part of the discussion.
Right, right,
Would be looking at all zones, whether it applies or doesn't apply to that zone.
right. Any public comment? Yeah, come on up. Name and address.
Bob Lowe, 411 Third Ave. So part of the discussion should be, you know, what do we want for our town, right? So right now, I think the code and the charter and the ordinances are very geared to the residences. And I understand that maybe some businesses might complain, or, you know, they might want to do some things, but is the town wanting to shift more to be a business town, or do they want to stay a residential centric town? And the thing about, you know, you give an inch and they take a mile, you just have to be careful, those kinds of things. To me, you know, it's about the residents. So I walk my dog all the time up and down Third Ave, and I can hear the music, and sometimes it's pretty loud from Casa Bonita. If I had lived in those 2 houses there, I probably would be upset. I don't necessarily hear it up where I'm at. But I think, you know, we need to keep in mind the residents. Are they disturbed? Are they annoyed by it? I mean, if a grumpy old man, you know, if several people are complaining that this is an annoyance and a disturbance, it ought to be taken into account. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, they got to be
Thank
accurate
you.
complaints too. They got to be accurate.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing about, you know, decimals and noise, you know, sometimes there's a base, and maybe a decimal meter is not going to get that, but that is extremely irritating, you know, that kind of pulsing sound there. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment relating to noise? Yeah, Jim. Jim. Seaton. Hey, Whitney, hold on. Jim's going to get up. All right, Whitney, come on. Go ahead. Oh.
Yeah, Yes, sir. Whitney Bobbitt, 142 11th Avenue, Indialantic. Having lived here most of my life, coming in here to go to college, I'm very familiar with the different kinds of businesses that get into this kind of challenging situation. Having gone to several of the Casa Bonita events, I do believe those circumstances warrant different types of conditions. So I like this idea of the 3 different tiers. I think that would work well. Having been at the event where one of the violations occurred, it's kind of a situation where depending on which way the wind's blowing and how much traffic's going by, whether you can even hear it at the street level. I mean, we're talking about such minimal things, and I felt bad for the policeman that had to come up and break up a birthday party for a Christmas event in a beautiful setting with 3 generations of families having a good time. So there's kind of a personal side to this thing where when you have a bunch of town locals that have formed this town that are all having a good time together to get shut down at 8:45 or whatever, and it shuts the whole thing down, I think that ought to be considered within one of those 3 layers, especially in this type of environment where a single musician's plugged in, maybe a guitar player, it might be an organ player, you know, it could be a little bit of an amplified boombox or whatever you have to do to be able to entertain people in an event type setting. You know, there's Valentine's Day coming up. There's different types of fashion shows. There's different ways of generating business. So I think at least in her case, in Casa Bonita's case, that has to be taken into account. One last thing I'll add before I depart is we went in along with her, Carly and I went and kind of scoured the whole area with one of these decibel meters. And very quickly, anything that we had amplified kind of test in the local neighborhood got drowned out by the wind and got drowned out by the traffic within about 120 feet. So 120 feet, you couldn't really hear what was going on in a typical performance over there, but yet the nearest house is 271 feet away, and none of those neighbors have complained. So the only reason why that came up and they got violations was based on the police being put in the position of hearing the music just on the street, not based on the fact that anybody ever complained about it. And I know there's some debate that one person might have, but we don't think that that's actually true. So there's a very special condition here I just wanted you to be aware of.
Thank you, Whitney.
I'd like to address that, please, if
Yeah.
I may. I would like to remind the council that when we're sworn in as police officers for the town of Indialantic, we're also sworn in as code enforcement officers, and that's 24/7, 365. And when music is bouncing off of Eastminster Church while the officer's going to another sound complaint, we're going to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
I'm going to blame some of these comments on my mother who brought me up to obey the rules. And
Jim, you name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Jim Seaton, 601 North Miramar Avenue. You know, I for one believe that the town code of ordinances, you know, should be enforced. And I think we've already seen when it doesn't get enforced, where it can lead. And so I've done some looking at some of the noise things in this area, and you know, when a person purchases a piece of property here, they expect that, you know, the ordinances are going to be enforced. So I have nothing against this business, but I don't quite understand why it's a place selling alcohol and it's within 750 feet of the Presbyterian Church. That's not allowed by the code. And it also, part of that code for that district says that noise levels from the operation should be negligible. And one of the prohibited uses in that area is outdoor business activities. So, I mean, I don't even understand how this came to exist without having a site modification plan approved by zoning and planning or a variance. The problem we have is we let these things go, and then they blossom into the problem I have in my neighborhood instead of following the code and enforcing it. And if there's a need for an exception, we have ways to do that, but really there shouldn't be any noise coming out of this place because that's what the code says. And the people that bought property over in the RP district or the R1B district, they're only 160 feet away from this place. So, I mean, it's not like this is isolated in the middle of Fifth Avenue and stuff. So I guess my plea is let's look at what's really allowed here and how that affects the noise, and let's protect the residents that own property over in the residential areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Mayor?
Yeah.
As I can address, the one thing that was an error was it's beer and wine only. It was hard liquor. They couldn't sell it there. So
Okay.
that's why.
Thank you. Public, or, yep.
Good evening, Council. I'm Mark Harold. I live at 505 North Miramar Avenue. I'm speaking on the music part of this, not the consent agenda that's been moved.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry. I appreciate the conversation you're having here. And I also appreciate the difficulty of the many moving parts that you're going to all have to consider here. I understand it because I'm involved in enforcement of code. I've been doing it for 25 years. I've did it for the county. I'm doing it for the city of Melbourne now. I'm very familiar with noise complaints. Unfortunately, in this situation, I am now the complainant. But I understand there are many factors you're going to have to consider, and I hope that you reach out to some of us for trying to maneuver those moving parts into, herd them together and to make a real good ordinance for you. I heard the chief speak about the decibel meters. I use that for the county and for the city. There are some technical things that you have to deal with if you go that route. We've used that meter without, when you're not taking it to a circuit court situation, and you're not trespassing on property. The ordinance for most of those places are you take the measurement from the complainant's property at a distance of 5 feet from the emitting noise. So you're not trespassing on someone else's property. But those things are all going to have to be considered, including how close residential is to this versus a business. And again, I appreciate the complexity you're going to all have to consider. And if you would like, I can give you my expert opinion on these type of things that I deal with over the 25 years I've been doing this. And thanks again for your considerations.
Thank you. Sherry.
Sherry Ledoux, 419 3rd Avenue. My first is a question when you're talking about discussing these new noise ordinances. This is a situation where the public has some input, is that correct? Okay, thank you. The other is, I live half a block east and 1 street north of Casa Bonita. I can hear when they have amplified music in my home with the windows and doors shut. It is not a pleasant experience. I have to turn the TV on or turn the volume up or leave the back of my house where I'm comfortable and move to another part of the house. I am in agreement with some things I have heard, that if the ordinance was in place when the business moved in, then those are the rules that should be followed. Unless you find the ordinance is no longer applicable, and then that's what we're going to do later on, is to amend that ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Indialantic.
Sir, your name and address,
My
please.
name is Claudio Esposito, and ladies and gentlemen of the Indialantic Town Hall. I'm a happy citizen of Indialantic since 40 years. I'm absolutely not against any business. I'm in favor of business. The reason I chose to live here was because of the wonderful nature, the beautiful ocean, the beach, the peaceful town, and I did put up with half a dozen of hurricanes. This was true until about a year ago. And now, with this new year, with this project, with what this demand of permission, I may have to put up with 142 days of loud music. I refrain to use my definition of it as noise and racket, because, you know, on my age, this for a teenager may be a good music. And I cannot stay on my balcony. And I hear this music inside my apartment with the storm windows shut. With the storm windows shut. I have the music in my apartment. I'm familiar with the term, you cannot fight City Hall. And I gave the definition, the Webster definition of how to fight City Hall. But all I'm asking is that rules, regulation, and laws be applied with common sense, and that all of you, when doing so, honorable ladies and gentlemen, put yourself in my position, in this unusual condition in our neighborhood, and be subject to my same experience. When you judge, if you want to play music at 110 decibels, put yourself, maybe your children or someone will live also nearby, and then make your decision on this matter. And again, I'm not against business, okay? I just want to live peacefully. Thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else? Oh.
I'm David Novice-Card. I live at 601 North Miramar. And I just want to observe that something that you should consider in developing your regulations is that if there's going to be some kind of a sort of a way out of the rules, you know, like the special event kind of thing, that that needs to be limited. You know, if a company comes and says we're going to do 140 special events in a year, their business is special events. Their business is not a hotel or a bar or anything like that. Their business is special events, and maybe there should be a separate category for that.
Yep, thank you. Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Ellen Harold. I'm at 505 North Miramar, so I'm right next to BB's. And when we moved in there a couple of years ago, we were glad it was there. It was a cute little bar. They had and like acoustic soloist who would play, you know, just during limited hours on the weekends, and it was really good. We enjoyed it. And since then, it has they've multiplied their seating capacity, so that multiplies their customer base, and changed from, you know, acoustic, and then sometimes, you know, some amplifications, and then now going to all-day music festivals, and then, of course, asking for one for every weekend. We really liked it when we first moved in there, but you know, you come to the beach, you want to sit at the beach and enjoy the nature and everything, and we're losing that. We hear music all day long, even if they don't have, you know, a band or anything. They've got their, you know, their radio or whatever amplified, so we hear it all over on our property, and it's just hard to get away from. I love music, but there's a time and place for it, and, you know, when they come and take the sound check, it's out at the street, which is quite a bit farther away than we are. So I just ask you to consider that as you're working on revising the codes. And I do thank you for having all these conversations. I'm loving it because you're really thinking about everybody, and I appreciate that. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else relating to noise?
Diogo Drados, 420 11th Ave. So, Chief, you mentioned you're sworn code enforcement officer, and you got to follow the code. And I think a lot of folks here have mentioned the idea of their victimhood, right? I mean, basically everyone has mentioned the idea of victimhood or non-victimhood. And John, you mentioned a party in the residential zone, right? And I think a party in the residential zone has a de facto application of victimhood. There is, if a nuisance appears in the residential zone, an example of a nuisance that we have an ordinance for is like parking in the grass, right? You're not allowed to park in the grass, I believe.
You are.
You are? Okay. Never mind.
Not you.
All right, I'll keep parking in the grass then. Good. But, I mean, there is a noise ordinance for the residential zone, right? And you're not driving around, and none of your patrolmen are driving around trying to find it, but they are driving up and down this street every day, all day. And so I think that there is this sort of de facto protection for something that is not potentially within what we might reasonably consider, well, somebody might be upset by it, but nobody currently is, right? So there's a de facto protection. I'm saying if we want to make sure that the code enforcement officers of this town are not put in a position where they're asked not to follow up on a code, they have to follow on the code. We have to, I think, add a de jure requirement to the code that says there must be a complainant. There must be somebody who is affected by this particular thing. And I think this is specific to noise. I think there's a lot of different nuisances that might not be the case, like parking in the street or illegal parking, that kind of thing. But I think noise is one where we might have to raise that standard to de jure. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, you have anything to, any comment on that?
Don't park in the swales.
There you go.
I did have something, but it escapes me now. And I'm looking at the zoning and stuff like that, and I could see where it would spill, you know, possibly from the C1 and the RP zones and stuff like that. But I think it was well said. That's all I'll say.
Let me point out too, just so you, on the C1, on the south side of the roadway on Fifth Avenue, because the C1 goes from, everybody was aware, C1 basically goes from Riverside to Palm Avenue on Fifth Avenue, and it abuts Sixth Avenue and Fourth Avenue. But on the Sixth Avenue side, believe it or not, in the corner block of Sixth Avenue is a residential zone. It is not.
Yeah, just about every building there is residence.
It's zoned residential.
Oh.
It's all zoned residential up to there. The 300 and 200 block are RP zones,
Okay.
which is residential. But also like behind Chase Bank back there, there's a residence that lives on Riverside Drive, on the river itself, and that all abuts up, and it's C1 too, abuts up to a couple different residences depending where the location is. So those things need to be taken in mind, I'm just saying, whenever we're trying to work these things out.
And Mark, I know we had discussed this the other day in terms of enforcing it if there's a complaint. And one concern that I did have just as a matter of law is that a few years ago they did change the statute so you can no longer have anonymous code enforcement complaints. So one of the concerns would be that it can't be anonymous. Just for consideration.
Right. And, you know, John, going back to that, you know, you were concerned about, you know, the grumpy neighbor, right? But you have to keep in mind that all the parameters, if it were written that way, all the parameters would have to be met. It wouldn't be one of them, you know what I mean? So there would be two, and the person has to complain, you know.
I get that.
Okay.
I totally get that.
Okay. Comment, anybody else? Noise related. All right. You guys have anything to wrap it up with? Matt, you have any questions for us? You kind of hear what we're saying?
So is the direction, do you want me to prepare something? And in doing that, you know, from what I'm hearing and from what I've heard from the public is we want to look at a tiered system, look at the possibility of different standards for different zones, consider multiple triggers for enforcement, whatever those might be. Provide, I thought it was a good idea. I'm not exactly sure how would a particular example I can think of, but provide examples in the ordinance. Is that something people are in favor of?
Yeah. So I was thinking, Matt, would be helpful. I don't need to see another presentation, but what I was thinking was actually, rather than jumping into actually writing an ordinance or drafting code, would be summarizing in clear and concise, plain language,
Yeah.
Well, with a date for, whatever words you say, a date for ending. Sorry, that
Oh,
was a
yeah,
joke.
severability.
Severability, that was a joke, bad.
It was bad.
But put a summary down, it says, here's kind of what our code is now.
Sure.
Here's what the other end of the spectrum looks like.
Okay.
Here's something, two ideas in the middle of what it could look like. Just plain bullet point.
Yeah,
We could,
yeah.
and maybe there's just a here's how it would work kind of thing. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. But before we start putting pen to paper, let's just
Sure,
kind of get some
sure.
ideas and some spectrum.
One thing, was there any general consensus on whether or not we like the idea of it being objective with a decibel or subjective as, is it plainly audible from here? I don't know what direction, if there's a thought, if the council wants to go in one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm dead set against any decibel meter, all right?
Okay.
Dead set against it. I'm going to vote no. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to vote no because it brings up too many issues, legal and otherwise. So I think the best course of action is subjective. You get a call, we get a call, police officer goes out there and says, yeah, that's too loud, turn it down. They don't turn it down, they get a citation. I'm not sure, why this is so difficult. I honestly, I'm having trouble with why this is so difficult. If a police officer goes out there and can audibly hear it, and it's a disturbance to neighbors, then there's a noise violation,
I
period.
think that as it's constituted right now, it's that there can't be anything that's disturbing to neighbors. And that, what does disturbing mean and where, and when can that, when is it allowed to be above that threshold?
Right, so you have parameters, so it's, you
And
have
if we
times
want-
a day.
And do we want to allow that, as I guess the fundamental question?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with your,
No, I
with
get
your
it.
synopsis.
Yeah, I mean, I would love an objective number, but I think.
So how do you-
Well, I mean, I'm listening to what you're saying, so I don't think at this point it's an option, but I would love some type of objective standard somewhere, somehow. But if Chief is dead set against it, and I certainly understand what you're saying, I don't think it should be incorporated at this point.
So I'll just give you an example. You go down there with a decibel meter. I've used decibel meters in my military career. You go down to business on the beach, all right? And you've got, I put some notes down here. When wind speeds exceed 15 miles an hour, noise levels at the coastline can approach or exceed 85 decibels. So we're going down there on a noise complaint because there's, I don't know, a party at one of the condos or at a business. Right. How do you weed out the 85 decibels coming from the waves, from the noise, from the condo? So those are the things that you have to have discretion with a police officer that goes there. Okay, I hear the waves. I got that. It's loud. We live on a beach. But there's also a party going on. I got to go shut that down. So that's why I'm against it because,
Nope, I get it.
Discretion of the police officer.
Yep. Julie?
I was just going to say, if Matt were to take things into consideration, like, again, I just did a brief search, and it's restricting brass instruments and drums, things that would create louder things, like, sorry. If that, something to, I mean, would you look into things like that are clear parameters that would immediately reduce something that was going to reverberate or whatever? Because it seems like I'm looking at language from Jacksonville, whatever, and it seems like there are parameters without decibels to say DJs aren't allowed, like anything that's going to be excessive.
Oboes, do you like oboes?
Love oboes.
Okay.
Don't know what an oboe is.
Yeah, write that down, oboes, yeah. Okay.
Not hobos.
Hobos,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I wasn't sure at first.
Well, how about hobos playing oboes? All right.
Only in C1.
Yes, C1.
And are you open, like, if we find things, to send them your way?
Yeah, absolutely.
To suggest
Absolutely.
that,
Yeah.
to make it as, understandable
Yeah,
and clear
absolutely.
as possible.
All right.
I'm sorry, may I add one more thing? First of all, I self-taught myself how to play guitar, and my dogs would leave the room when I was playing, but now they don't, so I think that it's getting better. But I just wanted to, this came up at a different hearing here recently in town, and it concerns operational radios or other mechanical or electronic devices for motor vehicles. And it's under 316.3045, and part of that language is specific and says, under sub A, it's under sub 1, sub A, it says, If it's plainly audible at a distance of 25 feet or more from a motor vehicle, it's in violation. And so you're not handcuffing yourself, you're not doing anything else that's going to be so restrictive. And you could set that perimeter out further, 100 feet, 200, 300 feet, done. We have lasers, that we do for speed detection and things like that. It has a rangefinder built into it. Those are calibrated every 6 months, or certified every 6 months. There's your measurement. Plainly audible from this distance, it's in violation. And again, hearkening back to when this thing first started, it was still in the shell. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing, but we get compliance most of the time. We walk up, we say, you're in violation, your neighbors are complaining about it, let's be good stewards, let's be good neighbors, and things go down. And we're at a point now, I think, with certain businesses in town where it's just out of spite and it's out of principle that we're the bad guys, you're the bad guys, we need to come up with some type of common agenda, common playing field, and I think that this plainly audible at a certain distance is sufficient.
And that adds some objectivity to it. I like that. All right, moving on. All right, how about we talk about 123 special event requests?
C1 zone
The
thing.
outdoor activities.
Everybody's here for the fun part. All right, that's fine. Discuss outdoor activities in C1 commercial zone. Julie.
Yeah, so this is also inspired by Casa Bonita and them having a unique little courtyard. And currently under the restrictive use, I think it's a prohibited GG for no outdoor activities. So literally nothing. I mean, even the most reasonable things can be done. So I am hoping that we could direct Matt to remove that restriction from C1 to allow outdoor activities within reason. If there need to be parameters, obviously nothing wild and crazy, but.
Yeah, I think I don't have an issue with that specifically. The question is, what are the unforeseen issues that we don't know about yet? That would be my concern, but.
So just to be clear though, Mike, we talked about this last week. There are provisions for allowing outdoor activity provided you have an indoor seating such as like this.
So in-
certain restaurants on Fifth Avenue.
It's been brought up as like, Dijon and, Scott's on Fifth Avenue have seating outside. I go, but they're considered cafes because they have seating inside in restaurants. So that falls under the cafe thing. Where down there at Casa Bonita, they have no inside restaurant and things like that.
Indoor seating.
So indoor seating. So a cafe is different than that. And I don't want to get too broad to say because how staff can differentiate. Hey, you can do that. You want to have a, whatever type of thing. And so you might want to be a little more specific if we could do
Outdoor activities can be
Yeah.
very broad. Yeah.
So,
Is it outdoor dining? Is that what the issue is?
It's an outdoor seating, mingling, chilling by the
So that- I don't know
campfire.
if you've been by the facility before, they do have an outdoor courtyard that is on their property.
Yeah.
That is not public space, that they're able to put, I'm just making up stuff. But you could host a party, you could have an art display, if you will, or an art festival. You could have a seating, you could do catering. If it was legal, you could put food trucks there, but that's not allowed, so we wouldn't do that. So that's a little bit of a unique circumstance where most of the businesses in the C1 zone on Fifth Avenue facing don't have public property they could actually do much outside, and we would certainly want to be cognizant of and make sure we didn't allow them to use public space and impede upon the right of way, which I think is already.
Yeah, I guess my concern was, not speaking about this particular property, but just in general, because I know what you had said earlier, potential unintended consequences when we remove the ability in a certain zone to unrestricted outdoor activities. That can be a concern. I mean, I know obviously what the intention is, but just.
Well, can we define?
Yeah,
what's
I think so, yeah.
acceptable?
And I guess that's what I was kind of getting at, like, if we can define what outdoor activities are.
So like a list a list of approved outdoor activities? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we have that in other parts of the code. Perfect. I think that'd be,
I know we're limited on size, but maybe also nothing over greater than this, you know, you don't want 150, 200 people. TD Bank over there, they have that entire parking lot. I could have a good rave over there, things like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just saying, it's a, you know, you say there's not a, but properties change and everything else, like, so maybe limited to size too would help.
Like a certain percentage of the property, like,
A certain percentage of the property, maybe, you know, these events should not have more than, let's say, you know, so many people per acre.
well, it's not so much, well, you gotta be careful, but it's a use, so in theory, it could be daily. right?
Yeah.
So, and then you've got to consider parking.
Is it possible to have Carly come up and kind of run through some of her interests to see if it's,
Yeah, and part of the problem, like, they don't have enough parking already for their square footage in their building, so, but we're looking at that as we're addressing things. But, you know, on one of the events that got turned in that didn't make forward, they talked about valet parking. Well, I don't know where they're gonna valet park, if they're taking their parking up. I didn't get into that because it didn't make it that far, but that's concerns with other businesses too,
right?
that they don't affect other property owners without permission.
Right, right. Well, that's why I wanted to open the discussion, but thinking that it's something, again, a business that's trying to, you know, that is invested into a beautiful property in our town. I mean, we were on the edge of having a 10-pump 7-Eleven, for the love of God. So we have someone that's invested and restored the building. It's one of the oldest historic buildings we have. So the type of activities that she has described to me seem like reasonable, you know, again, gentle activities that aren't disrupting anybody. And so I think it's worth, you know, looking at in her specific area that, you know, and of course considering, you know, obviously we don't want to open up Pandora's box to flow over to other properties and have undesirable things going on. But if maybe she'd like to come up and, if you're okay with it.
yeah, or, I mean, Carly, you're welcome to, or we can engage out, you know, outside of the meeting if you want to talk, you know. You guys want to hear that?
Yeah.
All right, Carly, come on. Name and address.
Yeah.
Carly Senegoy, 113 Franklin Ave, Indialantic. Yeah, so when I bought the building, I think it's just kind of evolved. We have a little coffee shop, so now we have a few tables and chairs and umbrellas outside, so I would like to continue to provide that. You know, drinking coffee and beer and wine. I want to also apologize to you, ma'am, for loud music and things that have, you know, disrupted the neighborhood. That's not what I want. We did host Long Dogger's Christmas party, and that got pretty loud. Yeah, so I'm down to keep the music at a minimum, like acoustic guitars, certain days of the week, certain hours. I just want to provide like mellow music. I think this town needs it. I was born here. We had a cool music scene when I was younger. I'd like to see that come back. You know, just music in general, arts. We do flower bouquet making classes, art making classes, wine tastings. What else? Just little things. I'm not trying to disrupt anybody, and if I have in the past, I apologize. Don't want to do that going forward. I think we can come to a good understanding. I like the tiered system idea. I think that's good. If it's just an acoustic guitar or a speaker during certain hours, we don't have to run that through council every time. If it's a band or something louder than that, then it needs a special permit, you know, special event request, and you only provide those, you know, ever so often, so a business can't abuse it. Just common sense, really, you know?
Could I also say something real quick, just since
Yeah.
that you need to make sure that whatever you're doing, if it's approved out there, that you do have business tax receipts, because you don't, a lot of those places you don't have business tax receipts for.
Oh.
So you don't have that. You're hosting yoga, I've been told too, and things like that. So we need to like we can't just keep opening it, so you need to kind of help follow the rules and a little bit too.
You should come to a yoga class.
Well, we have another issue with another business that does
Yeah.
physical activities in their outdoor area.
That's funny.
Nearby, so.
So,
Any other comments from council? Carrie, you got anything? John?
I think art classes and bouquets and those kind of things that area is beautiful. I've you know, back when the wine bar was there, the previous wine bar, it's nice to go sit and have outside.
Yeah. Any public comment?
Do I need to state my name again?
Yep.
Bob Lowe, 411 Third Ave. So again, I don't think we should be saying things like, let's take something out of the code, because, again, those things are in the code to protect the residents. So I think when they wrote those codes, and they're thinking about protecting the residents, and they say no outdoor activities, they know that they're protecting the residents with that statement. So I wouldn't suggest taking that out. But on a case-by-case basis, if something's going on and somebody, is doing something that's not disturbing the neighbors or it's not too loud, fine, address it one-on-one, but don't just kind of take it out of the code, right? Because that's there to protect us.
Yeah, so just to be clear, that's why if we included a specific list of activities, then you would be able, we would allow the town staff to have clear guidance on what is permitted as opposed to just
Right.
carte blanche.
And that's good, and we do have that now, by the way, in a lot of the zones. It's very specific about what's allowed. And we have we have a violation, right? We talked about Indy Yard quite a bit, that violates that right off the bat. So that gets to back what Jim says. Why are we even in this situation when something is in the code, black and white, and we're gonna allow it to happen, and then it causes all these problems that we then have to figure out how to address? Why don't we just not allow it? And follow the code. Thank you.
Thank you.
In all fairness, Mike, would it be fair to say that some of our codes were written in
52?
50s, so times change.
Yeah, there's code evolving, so.
Times change,
Yeah.
and I think we need to be
Right.
okay
Yeah.
to change with the times as well, which is why we're going through this process of updating a lot of our codes, because communities change, time changes, and we're in 2026 right now. We're not in the 1950s. So this is why we need to make some changes. And I also want to point out that someone's interpretation of us, not town council, but the town violating codes isn't always accurate. I see letters that come to the town council, and I will stop in and ask Mike, or even Molly, and especially Cliff. I understand from a resident that this complaint is this about this violation, that we're not enforcing the ordinances. And I'm told emphatically, it's not true. So.
It's perspective.
Right.
Sometimes it's perspective. It really is. I mean, in a former life, I was a law enforcement officer. Right now, I umpire a lot of baseball. And one coach may see something different than the other coach. I've got to make that ruling. That's what a police officer has to do when he goes out there. So that's why I'm saying we need to make these pretty clear for the enforcement action that's going to follow up.
100%. Thank you.
Dave?
No, I agree.
Dave Berkman, 225 8th. Carrie, you said it right. So the elements of the code are extremely old. I know I voted, there was a code back when I was mayor that we eliminated, that women were allowed to buy a drink, right?
Can't solicit, women cannot solicit in bars.
So that's recently, that was during my tenure, we got rid of that. So it's a broad statement to say the code exists, you can't have, it doesn't make sense to change it, but that's not really the case in our code, because the town's old, 1952. So these codes, some of them make no sense. Some of the enhancements or modifications make a lot of sense. I mean, for me personally, I think that to make a modification to allow some types of outdoor activities in the small 2-block, or was it 4 blocks of C1 makes sense, limited. But don't convolve that, oh my God, she may be loud, because the noise ordinance is going to get modified. That's separate. So you can have an outdoor activity in C1, which is a total prohibited use, but to say you can't do it because there'll be noise, that's a separate ordinance. Address the question at hand is, can you have an activity in C1? the noise ordinance, when Matt goes and reworks this or whatever you choose, will be applied to that district also, but don't involve that in the decision of should you have these activities. If you look at the commercial district, you have how many, at least 3, maybe 4 or 5 restaurants here that have outdoor activities right now because they're an outdoor cafe. I mean, and they make significant noise. I mean, I'm 3 blocks from DeJean's place. I could hear that when the wind's calm or the wind's coming out of the north all the time. You probably can 1 block later, right? So don't involve them. Look at C1, great idea, Julie. Let's fix that piece of it or enhance it. It's an enhancement for the town for most people. Or noise ordinance separate. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Mark?
I can't hear you.
No, just.
No, not yet.
Outdoor
Nope.
activities, yeah.
Diego?
Yeah, just in the theme of...
Name and
Oh,
address.
yeah, Diego Adrados, 420 11th Ave. In the theme of, people like to bring up the comprehensive plan, right? Goal 1, there's only one goal. Maintain and perpetuate the primarily low-density residential character of the town with all other uses of land being secondary in nature. And then people stop there. And then it continues, though. Nobody reads the rest. While at the same time providing for commercial and professional areas to meet the needs of the residents. There's nowhere else that I can really bike to. Parking's not a concern for me at Casa Bonita. Plenty of bike space. I bike there with my kid, my wife. It's wonderful. So laws do have to change. We are mandated to support this goal. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Whitney Bob at 142 11th Avenue. Since he went twice, I'm going to go ahead and try it again.
Wait, yeah, it's a new topic. You can only get one per topic, so.
All right, this is a new topic, though. right?
Correct.
This is
Yep, you're
particular
good.
in that. So it's about outdoor activities. I don't know exactly the exact code references, but there are code references very specifically that talk about enticing families together to be able to have communal activities. So much like a park, much like other things that we do here, not so much geared for tourists to come in, but for the community to come together, for families to come together, I think is what we're trying to accomplish here. And so Casa Bonita, in very particular, creates very unique circumstances, very unlike the workout place down the road, BB's, and all the other places that we've heard about here. So in order for what I think the businesses and the people are looking for, the balance is unique rules for each different area. And I don't know how to do that. You guys are better at this than me. But you can't have the rules we have now in place work for everybody. Some places it works, some places it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any more comments from council to wrap it up?
Yeah, I don't know what the next step forward would be, but possibly if there is support amongst council to move forward with this, then I would like to see us move, so that she can be in compliance. And I don't know how we go about creating those the definitions of what's allowed. Are there maybe some examples we could look at from other, businesses like that are not going to disrupt neighboring properties?
Carrie, you good moving forward to explore?
I am.
John?
I am.
Doug?
Good. I would just suggest you have me do some research, maybe provide those inputs, and then we can review that either offline with certain parties, or then we can revisit it next council meeting. Obviously, we'd have to go through the ordinance process to absolve it or resolve it if we so choose to go down that route.
Matt, you good?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Moving on to 123 special event requests. As I replied to many of the residents, I don't think you have to be all that reasonable to find it unreasonable for 123 event requests. And as Matt pointed out, the definition of a special event is not 3 days a week, every week. So my initial suggestion is we don't approve anything after March. I'm willing to accept maybe May, because hopefully Matt may have a new noise ordinance by then. And I would certainly wouldn't want to be approving anything, 10 months in advance, especially if there's going to be a limit, because one of the things that we've talked about is having an annual limit for a business or property owner. So the other thing that Matt pointed out also was all of them except for the St. Jude ones are incomplete applications because they don't state what the special event is. So those, in my opinion, are fairly easy to kick out. I don't know what other people are thinking. So Doug, you have any thoughts?
What did we charge for the application fee for each of the special events?
Nothing.
Nothing. And are there any actual special events in the month of March between now and the next council meeting?
There's one St. Jude for every month in the applications. Those are the only quote-unquote special.
My iPad's locked, so I can't see what the details of that.
Well, each one is listed, so see how it says
got
St.
it.
Jude fundraiser, and then there's one like I said, every month.
I don't disagree with any of your statements. And since they didn't cost anything, we're not disenfranchising the applicant by disapproving any or all of them of any financial investment they've made. The sheer quantities speaks for itself. I'm not, if anybody's here to speak on behalf of St. Jude and the fundraiser and how much money they anticipate to be able to make and how important the amplified music request is to that fundraiser, I'd like to hear it. Short of that, I don't see a need to approve any of them.
John?
I wrote some comments down. While I understand the frustration with incessive, bordering on obsessive complaints, this is not an excuse to antagonize other property owners. A recent noise ordinance violation demonstrates that the town takes noise violations seriously and will hold violators accountable. The town's ordinances, specifically the amplified noise ordinance, are in place to avoid situations for which your business was cited. It is evident that you invested a great deal of time, money, and effort into improving some blighted properties in our community. This is commendable, and we appreciate you turning these properties into something that for the community to enjoy. A majority of code violation complaints lodged against your businesses have been investigated and closed because they were unfounded. But the town will continually vigorously enforce any future violations, specifically noise or any other quality of life issues. The recent attempt to request over 100 special event permits appears to be an attempt to circumvent the town's code and not be a good neighbor. I will not vote to approve this amount of special event permits as is excessive, and I also encourage you to be a better neighbor.
Thank you, John. Carrie?
Hold your applause to the end, because I'm not done.
I agree with what you said. I don't believe in taking a machete to the word special event. So, and I think that's what's happening right here. So I don't agree with that. I think let's make events special. I wholeheartedly support our small businesses, and I support any type of fundraiser for St. Jude's. This is children we're talking about that have life-altering diseases, so I'm all for that. So I like your suggestion of just approving those.
Okay. And when you say those, you're saying for March only, not?
Correct.
Okay.
Your initial suggestion, I agree with that.
Okay. Julie?
All right, my thoughts on this, when I first got my agenda, I was annoyed. I mean, I was scrolling and scrolling, I'm like, what is this? It's clearly, like you said, trying to circumvent the ordinance. I personally don't have an interest in improving any of them. I don't think it's necessary. I think it is necessary that we come to, it needs to be resolved, the noise ordinance. And if I didn't say it already, you know, I have attended Blue Beach, haven't lately because the weather's too cold, but you know, over the summer, my family and I will walk up there and I enjoy it. And even on the rare times they had music, it wasn't that loud. So obviously what I experienced is not what the emails that we're getting. Like I said, I want to be a business partner in our community. I think that that's fair, but I do, like John said, they have to be a good neighbor too. They do have a responsibility. They are sandwiched between two condos, and they have a responsibility to conduct themselves, not just in respect to the neighbors, but in respect to our police department. You know, they're burdening, I mean, this whole debacle, I don't know, I wasn't on council, but I did go back and watch all the meetings prior to my campaign, and it was it's been going on for quite a while now. And the amount of emails that we read and all of the code things, it's burdensome, you know. I want resolve, I know that the neighbors want resolve, but as far as this request, I think it's excessive. I do not want to hinder them from having entertainment, but it has to be within some respectable parameter. Again, something that's not going to even routinely be annoying to the neighbors, you know. I understand they live on the beach, you know, but there has to be some agreeable balance that we can find. And so for that, I don't think even St. Jude's, because I just feel honestly like it's a manipulative measure. So I'm not interested in supporting that. And I do support St. Jude's.
All right. Matt, did you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add was I do believe that there was a single special event request made in October for a Thanksgiving event, and the council approved that special event, that single special event for a Thanksgiving weekend event, and I believe it was approved unanimously.
Correct.
Mike, did you have anything? No. Chief? No, sir. All right. Public comment? All right. We'll start with Mark this time.
My name is Mark Harold. I'm at 505 North Miramar Avenue. The town's special permit for application is only required if it's plainly audible from the right-of-way. A permit is not needed if the amplification is not heard from the public right-of-way. This distinction is important when it comes to when you're concerning the noise ordinance. The applicant's request is to essentially be exempt from the town's noise ordinance throughout the whole year. That's how his special activities are. It's for the whole year. For an unrestrained, intensified bar and entertainment destination, not a motel for allowing some coffee and some drinks and a small acoustic guitar. It is a bar and entertainment destination. The permit request is without consideration of his neighbors, the surrounding property. It's not the appropriate purpose for a special activity permit. And it is our perspective not suited even for this current location. As shown by the provided illustration that I've sent all to you, the mapping, the road is over 300 feet away. The nearest balcony to that property is about 105 to 110 feet. So imagine the amplification that we hear every day that the police don't hear from the road. It is annoying, and it's not just on the weekends. It is every day. As shown, it is our perspective that this business has every right to succeed and make a profit within the constraints of his property line. Not our property. If I go to BB's and listen to their music, I go there specific for that. But when I go home, I want my vibe, the ocean, right? Not BB's music. Consider the recent complaints received by this city from the petition, the ongoing nuisance activity coming from this property. We respectfully ask the town council to consider denying the applicant's request for any permits right now. We also ask that a moratorium be placed on all these type of permits until the council may be able to better amend the code to more judiciously protect the interests and serve property and business owners appropriately. Furthermore, it is the perspective of nearby property owners that the already daily unrelenting noise disturbances coming from this property is not being forced correctly by the town. They're taking the plainly audible from the road. That only applies if they need for a special activity permit. If you hear it from the road, you need a permit. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Who's next? Anyone? All right, Jim.
First of all, I'm very gratified by what you've all said about trying to understand where we're at and what's needed here. So, I'm sorry. Jim Seaton, 601 North Miramar. I just put a name tag on. So I forward you a petition signed by a majority of the people in our condo, and it sounds like we're on the same page with you, so I won't go through some of that, but I did want to let you know that I did a public records request that Molly, as normal, filled it out quickly, and I went through 10 years of special events requests, right? And nobody has tried to circumvent the ordinances in this way. Everything you look, it's really been some kind of special event. And that's, I'm glad to hear that you guys understand that. I would like to point out that during the special event in the couple days after Thanksgiving, there was confusion about is there any noise limits during a special event? And I'd like to agree with Mark in that there should be a moratorium on these things until we get a new code so we know. Because the feeling of the residents in my building was that there was no limits. They turned the bass up and, you know, we had one resident below me with her dog crying, whimpering in her room. I had paintings on my kitchen that were vibrating. And that just shouldn't be happening. So I think a moratorium on any special events until we rework the noise ordinance would be appropriate. But if you have to approve the St. Jude one, maybe one, but we really need to, you know, get the whole package put together on what's allowed. And appreciate your support of my neighborhood.
Thank you, Jim. Before we get Matt's opinion, what do you guys think about a moratorium until we can get a new amplified sound ordinance in place?
I don't think a moratorium on special events across the board works. There's other special events that are coming
Okay.
that we normally approve in the March, April, June timeframe.
Okay.
So,
Absolutely, we
Yeah.
shouldn't have one person or one group dictating
Right.
what we're doing up here.
I
So.
Fair
think we can, as a council, figure it out. Make sure that we judiciously review and approve the special events on an appropriate basis, is the way I
I
put
think
it.
we all see what's going on, so I mean, it's not,
So is there a motion for these special events? We've talked about it. Is there a motion to approve or not approve?
I think we have to make a motion to approve, and then we either approve it or deny it. And if we make no motion, it dies on the vine, so to speak, right? Correct, Mike? Or Mark?
If your intention is to deny them, I would make a motion to deny.
Fair enough. I wanted to articulate it. So. I'll make a motion to deny all of the special event requests as submitted.
Is there a second? We had discussion, anything to add?
That takes out the St. Jude's as well?
The motion does, yes.
If we wanted to amend it to allow the March St. Jude, I'm open to discussion. I'm of the mindset of Julie. They can still hold a St. Jude's fundraiser. Having music there or not, hopefully does not, influence the ability of people to donate money to a good cause, in my opinion. But.
Okay. Julie?
Yeah, I will be voting for your full denial. I think that other things need to be resolved before we move forward, and I feel good about that. I don't feel like we're denying and being spiteful. Like I said, I think that I would like to see them. I enjoy going there. I think there is an acceptable thing. It's just this is not it.
Yes, I'll happily go to the March 22nd St. Jude fundraiser and donate some money if that's what it takes.
And I will as well. I think we're dangerously close to being on the next episode of Neighborhood Wars on A&E TV. And I think we need to make sure that we all can be better neighbors. So I will support that.
All right. We already had public comment. So all those in favor of denying all of the 123 special event requests, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, unanimous. Let's see, Matt, you have any reports?
I did have one issue. and this pertained to 300 Cocoa Avenue?
Yes.
Yeah. This is a property that has had code enforcement violations for quite some time. There was an order imposing fines back in October of last year. That was recorded as a lien in November. It's a non-homesteaded residential property. My understanding is no one is living there. It's accruing fines on a daily basis. My understanding is it's been a problem for many years. At the code enforcement hearing that we had a few weeks ago, the code enforcement board, I presented that to them. Mike and Molly gave their input on it. The direction was, I'll say because a lien has been recorded for more than 90 days, if the town wants to foreclose on the property, we can. The code enforcement board gave the recommendation that we send a demand letter giving them 90 days, saying if the lien is not paid and the property is not brought into compliance in 90 days, then the town will institute a foreclosure complaint and move forward with foreclosing on the non-homesteaded property. That was the recommendation from the code enforcement board. The town council, if they wish, can follow that recommendation. They could also authorize the filing of a foreclosure complaint immediately. It's really within your discretion.
So we've talked about this in Mike's office. It's been 12 years that this thing's been abandoned, right? There's holes in the roof. They don't need another 90 freaking days, right? So I say we, at 9 a.m. tomorrow, we do it.
Can you remind me the address? Where's this at?
300 Cocoa Avenue.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be, a jerk about it, but like Matt said, it's non-homesteaded. Nobody lives there. There's siblings fighting over it in Maryland, right? It's looked like trash for 12 years.
Yeah, at the two code enforcement hearings that we did have, it was mentioned, Cliff had mentioned that they have been in contact with the owners, and the owners always represent, we're going to hire someone to take care of the property, and it just never happens. So it's not a situation where they're not aware of the code enforcement proceedings, and they were not aware of the two hearings. They were aware, and they've still chosen not to do anything about it.
So,
Question for what's the procedural kind of next?
Sure.
If we institute a foreclosure, what's that look like? What's the timeline?
Sure. So, well, yeah, Mike and I had this conversation at the code enforcement board hearing. So we'd file a foreclosure complaint. It'd be in circuit court in Brevard County. They would, after it's filed, it would be served on the owners. They then have 20 days to respond. I don't know how they'll respond, assuming they don't respond, or there's really no defense at this point other than, did you pay the lien or not? It would then move forward after we get their answer, or if they don't answer it, then we'd move for a default judgment, and we'd ask the court to set a sale date for it. The judge would then have a final judgment, and they'd set the sale date for the property where it'd be sold at public auction, and it could be 45 days, 60 days from the final judgment. The issue that Mike and I kind of disagreed with was, if it moves forward smoothly, if there's a default, we could potentially own the property or purchase it at foreclosure. I think in 6 months or so. Mike thinks it might take probably realistically about a year, if not more. If they do assert some kind of defense, it could certainly take longer than that. I mean, when I'm saying 6 months or a year, that's kind of like best case scenario. But if they do assert some kind of defense, they can certainly drag out longer. But from my perspective, it's non-homesteaded. No one's living there. My understanding is it's not just the exterior, but that the house itself has holes in it in the roof. Windows are it's been abandoned for quite some time.
Complete knockdown. Anyway.
Mike, did you want to add to the time frame?
No, I just on the time, just from other houses, we've had to deal with code violations and stuff that we're in foreclosure with banks. This is what we've dealt with, a year,
We should
sometimes
start
more.
that clock now, to
Yeah.
Mayor's point.
yeah, it's been 12 years. Right. I'm not good at that.
I'm reliving 234 Michigan all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you need a vote from us?
Yeah, as to what
Consensus?
your direction would be.
Okay.
I think Dick had a question.
Yeah, I just didn't, I was going to wrap it up, but we need to vote, so we need to public comment, right?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Why did it take us 12 years to take action? I'm just curious, because it seems excessive.
That I don't know. I wasn't.
Why did it take that long to put?
To come to this point.
Well, because before we were going out there and mowing them, and they weren't paying us to mow, so we stopped mowing and then followed a different direction and told them they need to get their own mowing, and so we started the process of going through the code violations and everything, so.
Yeah, I don't know if Matt mentioned it, there's $35,000 lien right now, and it's $250 a day.
If you wind it back, say year 3, could we have started this process at that point?
Yeah.
If we had decided to, and perhaps with a magistrate, that would be the timeline?
Yes.
Is the property paid for? There's no mortgage?
I don't know.
Don't know.
That I
That I
don't
can
know.
see. They bought it in 1978 or something. It hasn't had any title changes or anything.
Unless it's been remortgaged or
It
something.
has, I believe, 4 owners. They're in Maryland. I think they're siblings.
I'm just curious if there's a bank involved.
I don't know.
Okay.
You could certainly run a
Mine?
title search.
It's in
You know, obviously, if there's another party who has an interest in the property, that could complicate things, especially with if there's a mortgage, because the city's lien was only filed in October. We would certainly have a junior position with respect to that.
All right, so what do you need from us?
Whatever direction you want. If you want to, if you want to take the recommendation of the code enforcement board and do the 90-day demand letter, if you want to move forward with filing the foreclosure complaint, whatever.
Consensus or vote?
I would vote on it.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with foreclosure, understanding that they're still going to have 20 days, right?
From the time that they're served, yeah.
Yeah.
I second.
Public comment? Thank you. Oh, Dick. Let's go, Dick.
Dick Dunn, 330 Tampa Avenue. I don't disagree with denying all of these, but for tactical purposes, you might think about approving the St. Jude, because if there's any feedback coming from the other party, that's going to be prominent that they disallowed the fundraiser for St. Jude. So I'm just saying that you got to expect that there's going to be a reaction from this, and either tell them to make the request in September or approve the request, is just a suggestion.
Thank you. They can reapply in
Thank you.
April, and,
Yeah,
and they can still.
So he can come back, and since we denied these all tonight, if he comes back and says, okay, all right, I get it, I just want to have 1 or 2, we can readdress it.
Yes,
Correct.
yes, and I think the point that the vice mayor made too was that it doesn't prevent them from having the St. Jude fundraiser. It's just the music, the amplified music component of it.
Gotcha, okay.
Subject at hand, public comment relating to foreclosure. Anyone? All right. All those in favor of approving the foreclosure on the address at 300 Cocoa Ave, say aye.
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 All opposed? Unanimous. All right. Anything else, Matt?
No, not for me, no.
Mike?
Couple things real quick. The county has put in a burn ban. Based on that information, I put a memo out or an email out today that we've canceled. It's only through the end of February. All bonfire permits will refund them their money and stuff. And there's no outside burning except for controlled burns and barbecue grills. So that's definitely no for those. Everybody saw the manatee in Melbourne Beach. We do have one manatee grade up already. We had to put it in on one of them, and Joe's out the next couple days, and I think we have 2 more outfalls that we're responsible for. There's one the county has in our area. And we had talked about doing it, so we're going to look at doing the manatee grates on the rest of them.
Has anybody looked in our drains?
Pardon?
Has anybody looked in our baffle boxes to see if there's any manatees?
Not yet. So,
Maybe
but we
Joe.
have our pipes. I don't know how that was a pretty big thing. We
It's a
don't
big
have
box.
pipes that big. They're like this
Okay.
big.
Okay.
On ours.
Yeah.
Next month, I should be bringing stuff to go out to bid for our comp plan amendment. I'm working with Kelly, our planner, and we've been going back and forth. I was hoping to have it this month, but we don't have that yet. I did get some numbers on the kayak launch. I told the mayor about it. I'm not happy with the numbers because of everything. It was about 180 grand. So I'm working to see if we can get those numbers beat down, just to get closer and stuff. If there's something we can move things or eliminate a little bit things and reposition the kayak launch without having to have the whole extension pier and stuff. So I'm waiting on that number. And the pier is on the legislative docket. I've sent paperwork back and forth, and it is on the docket. And on there, I've read it, and I had to answer more questions from legislators in the last month. That's it.
Thank you. Doug?
Question for Mike, actually. Did we have on the agenda for tonight, the discussion for tonight, the yard trash pickup from Waste Management? Did we?
Thank you. I completely forgot about it. I didn't write that one down. So I did have a meeting last week with, throw me the bait there. I did have a meeting last week with Waste Management. Our contract with them is up in September 30th. And I know you might be hearing from Jim McKnight, no relation to Julie, from Waste Pro. He represents them as a lobbyist type of person. And when I had the meeting last week, I said our biggest concern is the yard pickup and how, you know, it went from what it was to now you have to call and all other stuff. So I had him work up a number for me, and they told me it would be 67 cents per month per residence for all this headache we've had over the years.
So they'll come by like they used to every Wednesday or whatever.
So they break Indialantic up into 3 different sections, and they do like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And they would drive around and pick up the piles and stuff. So some of our options are, and I'm waiting on I asked for a number of the town paid for till October, what it would cost. I haven't heard back from them. I sent an email Monday morning about that. So I'm waiting to hear that. Our options are, A, we can start that now. Do we want to pass it on to the residents, or wait until I get a number of what it would cost the town 8 to cost for the next 4 months? And then the other option is, if we do that, are we going to renew with them? I don't have the CPI yet, so it's going to be based on the WST CPI. It's looking at maybe like 3.5% to 4% based on the last ones, but they only put out the CPIs every couple months now. So that would be coming to you in May anyway, if we want to do that, or we have to go out to an RFP. West Melbourne had that happen, and they went out to RFP, and they ended up paying a lot more than Waste Management quoted them originally. So, and they didn't honor that other price. It was the higher one. But I think the biggest problem has been our waste yard pickup. So it's something.
Yeah, for 67 cents a month per person or per house.
Per residence, yeah.
So my recommendation would be, would be that if the amount between the time that we could start it to the end of the fiscal year, which would be September 30th, could be incorporated into the town budget and within the town manager's authority to let said subcontract that we initiate to start that service as soon as we can reach a final agreement with Waste Management, and then the town picks up that bill until the new contract is awarded for whoever it is, starting October 1st, with the estimate that that's going to be somewhere around $4,000 to $6,000 to the town to do that. But it would enable us to move back or forward with yard pile pickup ad hoc, especially with, as pointed out, there's all this yard vegetation that's going to be arriving curbside courtesy of our freeze, and then notwithstanding all the summer growth. So nothing else to report.
Do you guys want to vote on that? If authorize me up to, you know, whatever.
What do you think it would be?
67 cents. He quoted me like $400 some, but I'd say if you give me like a $5,000 limit and I come back to you all if it's more than that per month, or
no,
for the total.
Yeah, that's fine.
How about 6,000? That way, it gives a little bit more. That's because we're talking 6 months.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we authorize the town manager to let the contract increase to Waste Management for up to $6,000 for yard waste pickup for ad hoc.
Second. Any other comments? Public comment? Yep.
164 Flug Avenue in Indialantic, and I'm so excited to know that we actually participate in purchasing some of this yard waste, garbage collecting. We actually pay. That's great, because, you know, me, I'm ignorant. I think things are free. So I grew up in Melbourne Beach, and when I grew up in Melbourne Beach, they would not pick up your garbage if it wasn't completely bundled in, tied, and it's shut. They would leave it there and humiliate you until you did it correctly. So if we are paying for this, can we have lids on our garbage cans? Can we have an honor system throughout maybe just all the people in our community that we do love, and for the birds and for the animals and for the 40 years that I lived in this area, have the ability to protect our neighbors from the garbage? The honor system, maybe a little note delivered to each house, using common sense for them to bundle their garbage, even if we don't have lids, until we get the lids from the waste, what is it called again?
Waste management, yeah.
Waste management. All of our carts have lids on them, and if you have a broken cart, you just call them up and they'll replace it for free and bring you a new one.
I'm not here to argue. I'm here to tell you what I see every single day. And I can show you photographs, and it's 10 feet from the ocean, and there is garbage cans always open.
Are you talking the garbage cans down by the beach and stuff?
I'm asking
Or are you talking about individual?
our town to consider the danger of having garbage splittered throughout the town. That's dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, all those in favor of approving the town manager up to $6,000 to cover the yard waste pickup for the residents through the fiscal year 2026, which ends on July 1st.
No, end of September.
End of September. Why did I think? Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, unanimous. John, anything to report?
Yeah, I got a couple things. Did a little homework. Anyway, so first thing is I attended the Space Coast League of Cities dinner the other night, Monday night, and Holly Smith, the president of the Florida League of Cities, was the guest speaker. She's an excellent speaker. She had a lot of good information, stuff about grants, what the League of Cities is doing up in Tallahassee about some of the bills that are going through. So she had a lot of good information. It was very informative, and I encourage any members of the council to join me at the Space Coast League of Cities dinners. It's a pretty good time. The other thing I have, and for the folks that applauded, please put your listening ears on and buckle up. Here are some facts for you to consider. High surf storm conditions. When wind speeds exceed 15 miles an hour, noise levels at the coastline can approach or exceed 85 decibels, which is the threshold for potential hearing damage with prolonged exposure. Some key factors affecting that volume: wind speed, higher winds increased wave energy and white noise. Distance, sound decreases with distance from the shoreline. Time of day, during calm mornings, waves may be quieter, while windy afternoons increase the sound level. Based on standard traffic noise models, a 4-lane roadway, like the segment of A1A with 4 lanes, typically produces a noise level between 65 and 75 decibels for receptors within 50 to 100 feet of the roadside. Sound levels generally need to exceed 85 to 90 decibels to cause noticeable vibrations in wall-mounted items, with significant rattling or shaking occurring at higher volumes, typically above 100 decibels, comparable to a motorcycle, chainsaw, or loud concert. These high decibels, particularly in the bass range, lower frequencies, induce physical vibrations in the wall structure itself, causing art to move. So, you live between two of the loudest naturally noise-producing areas in Brevard County and in a tourist zone. And any noise coming from the property does not rise to the level of vibrating art on the walls, as one of your group has alleged. Your repeated attempts to close this business down through hyperbole, exaggerated claims, cherry-picking terminology, and/or misinterpreting the town's code, and conspiring with others to join your effort are noted. This behavior borders on harassment and serves no useful purpose. Although you have denied that this is your intention, your actions, and a recent undated email that I have a copy of demonstrate that that is your goal. While your goal is to shut this business down, your numerous complaints have been unfounded and/or the business has been found to be operating within compliance of the town's current ordinances. Again, all of your complaints have been addressed, and the property has been found to be in compliance with all the town's codes, with the exception of the recent amplified noise violation. The property owner was found to be not in compliance and was held accountable for this code violation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Here, Gary.
Thank you. Did the South Beaches Coalition meeting yesterday. We have turned over from Indialantic to Satellite Beach, and so Mayor Steve Osmer is our host for the next 2 years. He is also taking the lead as host of South Beaches Coalition. He's taking the lead of the Space Coast TPO meeting. I am his alternate because Steve Osmer is a very busy man. He's got his hands in just about everything in this county, which is very admirable, and he has the energy to do it, so God bless him. But so I'm happy to be his alternate. He will be attending tomorrow, but he is keeping us all at the coalition apprised of the results, as I did with them when I was the lead on that as well. So still funding is the biggest issue. The biggest issue that came up in this meeting yesterday, which our police chief is still the leader of the best practice, is the e-bikes and golf carts. And there's areas in Satellite Beach and Indian Harbor Beach that overlap, so they're working in conjunction, but they loved your example of ticketing repeat offenders that speed on their e-bikes, even if they haven't gotten their driver's license yet, even if they're not old enough. So they like that. They loved it, actually. So I don't think anybody underage has gotten a ticket yet, but I think the fact that they can serves as a strong reminder to the parents to keep abreast of what your kids are doing when you're not watching. So it was a very good meeting. I also want to address our town. Our town is a great community where neighbor helps neighbor, and we support our small businesses, and we all need to do a better job of getting along and supporting each other. That means neighbor supporting business, business supporting neighbor, and I think this has just gone a little too far, and I think everyone needs to just put their weapons down and do a reset and start over and try to figure out how we can all cohabitate. I will tell you, in the words of my friend, Paul Gugelman, Blue Beach is not going anywhere. It's gonna stay. If anything was not in compliance at the time that they started their business and got their CEO, they would be grandfathered in, so they're staying. And we need to learn how to get along. I think only wanting to hear the sound of the ocean when you live in a condo in a T-tourist zone is unreachable, a goal. I don't think that's a reachable goal. So I think we ought to try a little bit better to get along, and I'll get off my soapbox. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Julie.
I just wanted to bring up that a discussion I've had with Mike Casey a couple times in respect to the median and what we approved in our consent agenda with Fisher and Fisher. You know, I'm sure everybody understands that they've not been doing their proper weeding job. And, you know, I spoke with the town manager, I don't know, some time ago, maybe a month ago or so. And I'm asking that he reaches out to Susan Hall, who was our landscape architect, and ask for any advice on how to address, because we are coming in on just a couple more months of the company taking care of it. And in my opinion, with as much money as our town and our taxpayers spent on this project, when they are the very final day that they're weeding out there, it should look like the document I had in the beginning that we all saw, that the plants should be thriving, they should be trimmed, because that is the best it should ever look, is under their care. And so I just wanted to share that hopefully we can follow up on that, and hopefully Susan maybe has some pointers, because clearly this particular Fisher and Fisher has not taken the care of our median seriously, which is very, very disappointing.
So real quick, I've talked with Mike and Joe about it. I'm a yard guy, even though you wouldn't know because my lawn looks dead right now, but I'm not opposed to using chemicals, so I know which chemicals, right? Problem is those guys are out there hand picking weeds. Those tall grassy ones spread when you hand pick them. It's called sedge, purple sedge. Anyway, so you spray it with chemicals and it will never come back. I mean, well, periodic treatment, you know. So if our guys get out there, or if they get out there and just, you know, spray the right stuff.
Unfortunately, when they did spray poison, they killed all the flaxseed.
Right, because they did the wrong.
So they, you know, which is disappointing. And again, you know, the ilex are the same thing we removed from there. If they are not pruned, they're going to be out of compliance with FDOT guidelines. And I hear you on the weeding, and maybe, Mike, you can ask Susan that as to why, when we are planning the median, why was that not taken into consideration? Because, you know, again, you drive all over Melbourne, you know, communities, and I have never seen anything so drowning in weeds as our median. It's almost like was it Fisher and Fisher that put in the median? It's almost like they brought in a soil seeded with weeds. You know, it's literally, you know, again, I'm a gardener, you know, we're in the garden club, we know weeds, and they are just, I've never seen them so happy. And then obviously it's season, but there should have been something to take that into consideration. Maybe Susan could give us, you know, because I know she was there hand in hand with the whole process, so I'm just hoping that we can get some.
There was stuff put down there that, yeah, obviously didn't work too well.
No. Not from the get-go.
All right, that's it.
That's it.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming.
Are you going to Skiers?
This is, she's the one that spoke.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. Well spoken.
Karen, what did you need?
Exist if it's old and it's to interpret. The Constitution doesn't exist, it's to, and basically you can do whatever you want as long as it exhausts me. Because we're just tired of fighting,
We don't need to argue that.
Other than beer and wine, yeah, that's why they're allowed.
I'll look it over, but that wasn't my interpretation, but I appreciate you trying to explain it, but I'm not in the mood. We want a battle. I'm not sure we want any more. We want a battle. Thanks for your help.
No problem.